Vizsla Silver has consolidated the historic Panuco district in Mexico. We're an extremely aggressive explorer that's having a lot of success with high-grade results from two main veins, the Napoleon vein and the Tajitos vein. We've recently completed, we will have completed $74 million in financings in the last 2 weeks, including a $69 million bought deal and a smaller non-brokered placement for insiders. This money will be used to further consolidate the district through the exercise of options, multiple years of exploration through drilling and electromagnetic surveys, as well as optimizing the production infrastructure of the project. One of the things that I think is important about Vizsla is that we have very high grade mineralization. We have a district scale that compares to major districts in Mexico. And we have a pathway to production that sets us apart from our competitors.
Fantastic. Michael, good to see you again. How are you?
You as well. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Have you been down to Mexico, or are you hiding up in Vancouver?
Well, I'm pleased to say that I get to Mexico as much as I can. I've been twice in the last few months here. It's quite difficult to be away from the project during the COVID travel restrictions, but it seems that we're able to travel back and forth from Canada to Mexico a lot easier now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I caught up with Craig Perry last week, who's your business partner at Inventa Capital. He gave us a little bit of a rundown of what's happening. He seems very, very excited, very pleased. This is your flagship project. Are you full-time on that, or have got to keep your eye on some of the other projects too?
Well, I mean, I spend 90% of my time on Vizsla. I'm the chairman of another company in Mexico, Tarachi, but my time is split basically 100% on Vizsla, 10% on other things, and another 100% on my family. So
it's good. It's good. I like
that. Doesn't really add up, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It's the was it 5 a.m. to 8 o'clock slot plus weekends. It's good. It's such fun.
Yeah.
Hey, well, congrats. Since we last spoke, which is way back in February last year, you're up share price up 3.5 times. Market cap up to 230 million. I mean, that's a heck of a run. I mean, what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think the big thing is results from the project. I mean, it's clear now that we have what looks like a multi-100 million ounce silver district in Mexico. We checked a lot of the boxes that I think were criticisms for us early on, and of course those criticisms were fair. We had options that were bigger than our market cap when we started. We had I think the title is "How Do I Follow You into the Unknown?" And there was a lot of unknowns. There was unknowns around, is there going to be large areas of mineralization on these veins? If it's large, is it going to have good grade? And in the last 6 months, we've checked those boxes for investors. And I think it's clear now that Napoleon and Tajitos have the pathway to very significant resources. And those two veins are only 5% of the overall vein extent that we see in the district. I think that the Panuco district will continue to grow. And as we succeed at growing the district through exploration, the pathway to production really sets us apart.
Right. So let's talk about the plan. Okay. The business, always love to understand a business plan. You've raised a whole chunk of money recently, and you're using the phrase, you've got a path to production, but you're also saying it's district wide. And we've seen lots of companies come on here with the different models, and, some people just like to keep drilling, and that's fine. Some people want to get into production with only like 400,000 ounces. That's fine. What's your plan?
Well, our plan, and I'll speak to things kind of as an internal goals, and this isn't stuff that we, give guidance to the market, because we can't do that until we have resources and studies and things like that, where we can really talk about the exact production numbers. But as a goal, internal goal for Vizsla, we have a target of 12 million ounces of production per annum, and our business plan is to continue to drill the Napoleon and Tajitos corridors and show that initial 10 years of mine life. At some point in that period of time, exercise the options to own the mill. And as we continue to go through studies and resources, demonstrate that pathway, and then optimize the mill and put that into production and be a large scale producer in Mexico for silver and gold.
Right, but what are you finding? Because I know you quote silver equivalent numbers, but what are you finding? Because we've also got lead and zinc in there. But what's the portion of different minerals that you're finding? Metals.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So Napoleon is 80% precious metals. I would say the split kind of varies from area to area, but it's about 50-50 or 45-55 in favor of silver to gold. Make no mistake, this is a silver district, similar to any of these others. And Mexico's Zacatecas, Fresnillo, Guanajuato, Las Chispas, San Dimas. It's all very similar in the sense that 80% of the economics will come from precious metals, and typically that'll be about 50-50 or just a little bit more silver. And then you see some base metals in some areas. So we have about maybe 10 to 15 to 20% base metals in some areas of the Napoleon vein, but in the Titos vein, we actually have no base metals. So, the district is interesting. It's very large, and we have two types of typical veins there. One's with base metals, a small portion of base metals, and one's without base metals.
Right. Okay. So it's coming back to how do you play this thing? You've got your own permitted mill. It's a small mill to start with. What's 500 ton per day? What are the plans for that?
Yeah, it is a small mill in the grand scheme of things. I think for us to reach that 12 million ounces of silver production, we would want to see 2,200 tons per day. That's what you see at San Dimas. That's where you see at other larger commercial production facilities in Mexico. So, there's a couple of options. And this is something that we look at already. We've built the team out since we last spoke to include VP Projects, Pete Longo, Marty Dupuy, who's our tech services VP. So Pete Longo has a long career of Craig refers to him as the most creative engineer that he knows. He's worked with a number of underground mines in Canada and is familiar with this type of mining. Marty Dupuy we brought from Pan American Silver. He lived in Mexico with Pan American in the past, very familiar with building resources around these types of deposits. So with these additions to our team, we're looking at, of course, building the resource, and then secondary to that, we're looking at trade-off studies. Do we expand the existing mill, 500 tons per day, to something in line with the Silvercrest, a 1,200 ton per day milling facility, which is possible on the footprint that we have here at the El Coco mill. And then do we use that as a step to build, that larger central facility, 2,200 tons per day, to meet that 12 million ounce production internal goal. Of course, this is all internal, not public guidance, but we need to look at those types of trade-offs, and that comes as we continue to build the resource and as we publish resource numbers and do the studies. But I think initially what we could very easily do, and probably for around 10 to 15 million dollars Canadian, expand the capacity of the 500 ton per day mill to closer to 1,200 tons per day. Right.
So you're obviously not having trouble raising money. It's a great environment, great reputations as well. With the Invente guys. But with regards to the resource component, with the studies, etc., I get that you've got creative engineers on board. Are you looking to kind of skip through as quickly as possible that process because you've already got the mill there, or are you going to have to follow convention because the market's going to demand that from you?
Well, I don't know if the market's going to demand that from us, because I think there's the ability to do things that other groups have done, which is skip these steps and then go into production. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do things properly. I'm a younger CEO. I know that's clear. Although I don't have my hair, I'm still pretty young. Craig has the hair. He's also got the age. And Simon Smirlik's on our board. Simon is the COO of Ausenco Engineering. He's built billions of dollars of mines all around the world. In my opinion, not only because Simon's a mentor and a friend, do I think that he's one of the world's best mine builders, but I think by his reputation he is. And we won't. I want to be clear that you won't see Vizsla skipping through steps, rushing to production for the sake of doing it and then failing. It's about doing things right. But what having, the ability that we do have with the mill and the production infrastructure is to basically buy out that dip in the Lassonde curve. I think we're all probably familiar with the Lassonde curve. For $23 million US, we buy that out and skip that step of permitting, construction, all these kind of things that the market deems to be boring, albeit value creative. But I think we have to be really clear that we're not rushing to. Of course, we're not rushing to get that multiplier effect of silver production kind of without thought and without careful consideration. And the reason that we're going to do things right is because we have a board and a team that's done this before, and we'll do it again here.
So how do you tackle a project like yours? You've got these, really high grade veins running through, and are varying widths from, I've seen 1.5 meters through to 3.5 meters. And you've got some lower grade stuff too. When do you start putting yourself in a position where you can talk to the market and say, hey, here's how I think we're going to tackle it. We're not so concerned about dilution. We're not so concerned about recovery rates. The metallurgy is fine. I mean, when do we get a sense of the economics here?
Yeah, so I think, there's a couple of things. One is we're trying to disclose as much information as we can. And this is something that we pride ourselves on. We put out every single hole we drilled. But you'll notice on Napoleon and Tajitos, we put out the average width, the average grade, the strike extent, and the depth. And the only thing we don't really give out there, because we haven't published it yet, is the specific gravity. But that gives the investment public, the market, the ability to calculate what they might see as a volume, and therefore with the grade, ton, ounces in the ground. So with that, someone could take a look at Silvercrest PEA or the ASIC of San Dimas, which these are two projects that we could think are quite similar. And you could look at, well, what would it cost to get that out of the ground? And, some of those numbers are between $5 and $10, mostly closer to $8, $9 an ounce, all in sustaining cost. Keeping in mind that we don't have to do, $100 million CapEx for the mill. Keeping in mind that we're funded to make those option payments. You could see that the payback at the grades of 450, 500 gram silver equivalent, the initial payback and the cash flow at, let's say, 1,000 to 1,200 tons per day is pretty significant. So because we're not conventional in the sense that, okay, we found this piece of ground, we made a brand new discovery, in Canada or something like that. Now we need to get all of the organizations on our side, and we need to permit and build something 10 years from now will be cash flowing. We already have everything there in terms of the operating mill, the vein is there, we're drilling it out. That pathway to production and that pathway, and then, to cash flow is very, it's quite a bit shorter than we typically would see. And so it gives us the ability to look at economics in a different way, I think, on this.
Okay. So there's some numbers there that we could utilize, and we'll have to make some assumptions about the similarity of the ore body. Fine. But when are you going to actually put some numbers out there? When's the maiden resource out? When's the economics out? Well,
so the resource, I think it's kind of a bit of it's not the greatest answer, but we haven't found the edges of the ore body yet. So we don't want to rush to put out a resource until we know the dimensions of what we see here. So, and I'll be short, but the dimensions of what we see are 900 meters for Napoleon, and that's of 3 kilometers of strike that we see on that vein. So we could be drilling that. We're adding 2 more rigs, but we can continue drilling that for months. And we'll continue to drill it for years, I'm sure. But so we're not anywhere near kind of defining the strike extent of it. And the interesting thing about Napoleon is that it's completely open at depth, and we suspect that it could even double or triple in terms of its depth extent. So we could come out with a resource right now, but we don't want to rush that. And I don't think it makes sense to rush that.
Okay, so I bet we better talk about the money that you just raised. What's the use of those proceeds?
So the way that we've we've broken that down as we have about $30 million set aside for exploration. That includes 2 years of about 100,000 meters of drilling per year. So 200,000 meters of drilling, plus $10 million for Canadian, these are Canadian numbers, for the airborne geophysics that we'll do, the electromagnetics, which I think is, we can talk about that a little bit later, but that's really opening up the district for us. As well as this, we have it's quite an impressive exploration program, but we have multiple teams of geologists that are regionally prospecting this district that's, it's never been done before. So it's really exciting. So we have that set aside for the budget as well too. So 30 million Canadian for exploration, 10 to 15 million Canadian for optimizing, the production infrastructure as that time comes. And then we have, some money set aside for G&A, about 5 million for 2 years. And then we have about $30 million for the Rio Panuco option that we'll look to exercise when it makes sense for us here in the near future.
Right. Okay. So you guys are serious about this being a district-wide play. That's what you've raised the money and you've set out to be able to, put it on the table and say, no, this is genuinely district. Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just on the option. So when you say the best option, I mean, what are there limitations on that option, or is there a point at which that runs out?
No, we can accelerate that at any time and
no, but is there a long stop date though? I.e., if you haven't done it by a certain time.
Oh, to 2026. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have several years, quite a few years.
Yeah, and what's the monies involved with that?
So basically, we have to make a $2 million payment in the August of 2022, and from that point on, we make $2-3 million for scaling up payments. I believe the final payment $7 million, and that's in 2026, August of 2026. But our intention was never really to make those payments every year. It was to have that option. I think it'll go down as one of the cheapest options in mining history. At first, it looked so expensive, but we paid less than $1 million for the option of that entire district. It was a great deal, and now we still we don't have any meaningful payments until 2022.
Okay, understood. And with regards to the mill, what are we looking at there?
So that is that option. So the mill is included in that option.
So I meant, as in, are you? So there's no other cost. Is this just pure optioning? There's no kind of money that needs to be set aside for getting it back up and running.
Yeah. So it is operating. It's permitted. We definitely could use it right away if we were comfortable with the quality of the mill. But as I mentioned, Simon Smirlik, Ausenco Engineering, we want to bring it up to a standard that we're comfortable with. And this is, really, without doing the studies, of course, but from what our understanding and our kind of estimate, back of envelope estimate is, it could be between 10 and $15 million Canadian to bring that up to a level that we're really comfortable with and operating, smoothly.
Right. But that's money none of the money you just raised is for that. You'll raise money nearer the time when you actually, optioned.
We have actually set aside.
Got it.
We've set aside that cash for
you have?
From this. Yeah. So basically the breakdown is we have about $85 million. We have a little bit more than that, but let's use 85 million as the number for cash. We have just under 30 million set aside for the Rio Panuco option. $30 million for exploration, 5 million for G&A, and 10 to 15, let's say, for the mill.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I hadn't picked up as the 10, 15 mil was for the mill. Okay. Got it. Understood. Excellent. Just about the exploration component, just a little bit more detail in terms of what type of exploration are you doing? So
the biggest focus right now is drilling. We have 8 rigs, going to 10 rigs, and the dispensation of these rigs on the property is going to be almost entirely on resource drilling. I shouldn't say almost entirely, but the majority on Napoleon and Tajitos for resource drilling. 6, 7 rigs there as we get the other rigs to come. And then we'll have 3 rigs that are basically out there testing targets that are outside of the, let's call it the resource drilling area. And that includes Aguida Zarca, which is on Cordon del Oro. It's another vein in the center of the district. Actually, maybe I'll back up just a little bit on the district and how we look at it. We have the western portion of the district, which is Napoleon and Tajitos, as well as Josephine and some of these areas that we've identified with the electromagnetics. So this is a very interesting area. The western portion would be a huge project for a junior, if it were on its own in a junior. And then we have the center portion of the district, which includes Animas and Cordon del Oro. Cordon del Oro is what we think is an analog to Animas. There's a lot of Spanish names here. I know it might get confusing, but Animas was the center of historic production for the district. We believe there's been about 100 million ounces of silver taken out of that corridor over 7 ore chutes. Historically, that's on kind of historic reports that we see, and then void spaces there. We think that Cordon del Oro has the potential to be an analog, but although it's never seen any real production historically, it's kind of preserved in terms of an analog there. So we're drilling there. We are drilling on Animas as well. Animas is quite interesting. All of this, actually, we probably talked about this in the last interview, but the historic production stops at the water table. We think that we're going to have success drilling underneath the water table there. We think there's preserved ore chutes there, as well as new targets along Animas. And then that's the central portion of the district. Then we have the eastern portion of the district, and there's some very interesting targets out there. We're doing a little bit more groundwork to work up those projects, or those targets. But we have on the project, we have an excellent matrix, basically, of kind of early stage opportunities that go into our resource drilling at various targets like Napoleon and Tajitos. So we're talking. So you asked about what type of exploration we're doing. You know, we're of course we're resource drilling in the western portion. We're doing some target definition in the central area, and then we're doing some early stage prospecting and working up targets in the eastern area. But we're also doing that prospecting across the entire district, and you know, there's many targets to come.
Right. Okay. I get the kind of the district scale, but you are going after that and you're setting out to prove that. The high grade stuff, that's the headlines speak for themselves. They keep coming through, which is obviously good news. With regards to the production bit, sorry to keep coming back to this mill bit and getting to production bit, but it's at some point that's what you guys need to do. So, but if you were going to continue to drill and prove up the district bit, can you honestly talk about getting into production quicker than perhaps the market understands, or is that not really the business model here?
Well, it certainly is. You know, we have every intention of you know, creating a very significant silver producer here, and Craig will. You know, I'm perhaps not able to be as wild on our projections here, but you know, we really do see this pathway to being a comparable operation to a San Dimas or a Palmarejo or potentially even bigger. But you know, we need to do the right steps in order to achieve that, and you know, using going through the process of the resource to economic studies to turning that mill on, you know, can all be done very rapidly here. Done right, but it can be done in a short time frame. And you know, so for us to look at using that mill and the production profile, if we expand it to a level that suits kind of our aspirations in terms of production levels and ounces produced per annum, we can use that cash flow, of course, to further explore this entire district. You know, showing the pathway to what we see as multiple areas that have, you know, the potential for hundreds of millions of ounces of silver.
Okay, I said at the beginning, only because I think Craig used the phrase with me last week. You know, Vizsla is the flagship project for Inventor Capital, which is you and Craig. Okay, and you've got a portfolio of companies there. How do you play this? If you guys are going to try and set your reputations out, you're going to need to build a $1 billion company. That's what gets noticed, right? Rather than flip something which is like, what are you, 230 today? That, you know, a lot of silver companies have, you know, done exceptionally well in hundreds of millions. that gives you a quick buck in the back pocket. But is it now about reputation rather than just cash?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not about, building this to flip it. I mean, we have had opportunities to do that already. There's groups that are interested in taking this on. This was a difficult deal to do. I mean, I think I mentioned this possibly in an earlier interview, but I started Vizsla after Craig and I sold our first company together. It was a very hard thing in that summer to get the IPO done, which was less than $1 million. It's a tiny company, and for a while I was owed. I was running the company basically out of my own credit card and bankroll, making sure this Mexico deal got done. So I don't want to just give up on this and sell it to someone else. We know what we have here, let's say, in terms of exploration potential. Charles Funk has done an incredible job. Our technical director has done an incredible job of this building.
Interviewed him a week ago.
Yeah.
Put the whole team on.
Yeah. So he's, this is all of our kind of work put together on this. And so we're not overly sentimental in the sense that it clouds our judgment or anything like that. But, we don't want to just flip something and move on and leave the upside, for the next group necessarily, in the sense that we know that what we have to do to maximize shareholder value here, is perform on exploration and then on production.
Good. Michael, lovely to catch up with you again. Good to see you. Good luck with the rest of this year. It looks like you've got the money to be able to deliver. Let's see what the ore body gives you. Thanks,
Matt. And just some final thoughts here. Vizsla is going to have an incredibly busy Newsflow schedule here. I can see more great news coming out of Napoleon, Tajitos, as well as the EM targets that we've picked up here and shown in the final release before the financing. Again, we're very well funded to accomplish these goals that we discussed today. And, the three main points, always, again, huge district scale, massive high grade, and a pathway to production, I think that will surprise the market. So thank you, and looking forward to catching up again soon.